Hello, everybody, and either welcome or welcome back to the Gender Libertarian Podcast. If you do like this, please rate, comment, and subscribe. You can find me on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Spotify, YouTube, and on Libertarian Institute. So, holy crap, do we have a lot to talk about on the impeachment front, because there have been a lot of things that have happened this week. But before we get into that, I do want to let you guys know a little bit of housekeeping here. Guess who finally got off her lazy booty and actually made a Patreon page? Yeah, that would be me. The link to it will be in the show notes. And if you go to look for me on Patreon, it's under Jen Monroe. So if you have ever been so inclined to give me money, now you have a way to do it. And there are 2 tiers on there right now. One tier will give you early access to my podcast episodes, so I will be doing a little bit of a different release schedule than usual. That tier will give you an early 24-hour access to my episodes before I make them public. So there is that. So, like I said, if you want to contribute to my dream of maybe one day being able to just make a living making content for you guys, please go ahead, check out the Patreon page. Subscribe if you want to. If you don't, that's fine too. But I just want to let you guys know that it does exist. So, let's get into the impeachment dumpster fire of this past week / couple of days, which has been very hard and very confusing to follow unless you super duper follow these sorts of things. So I'm going to try to explain at least the important points as well as I can so that maybe you can understand what the hell is going on right now, because there's a lot going on, like a lot. So if you missed my first episode that I did about our current impeachment scandal situation, go back and listen to that one first, because in that one I talk about the whistleblower complaint and the notes from the phone call that started this whole situation that we currently find ourselves in. So, jumping off from that, where we kind of got to start now is the Biden trip from 2015. Now, for some reason, I would say I don't understand, but I do understand. Trump has latched on to this particular trip that Joe Biden took to Ukraine in 2015, where he told the Ukrainians, I forget who was president then, it obviously wasn't Zelensky because he just became president, but the idea was that the U.S. was going to start withholding aid money until the Ukraine got more serious about pursuing the corruption in their country. Okay. Trump has kind of tried to frame this as being the same thing as what he did, and it's not. And let me try to back up and explain what the hell that trip was. So, this wasn't like a secret trip or anything. It was known back in 2015. People wrote about it. And the thing about it back in 2015 is that everybody kind of understood why Biden was there and what was going on. And what it was that this wasn't Biden acting unilaterally to just go to Ukraine and threaten to withhold American aid to shut down an investigation into the business Burisma that his son was working for. That's not what happened, like at all. What happened was Biden went to Ukraine in his role as Vice President of the United States at the behest of the President of the United States, and also with the backing of the United Kingdom, the EU, the World Bank, several anti-corruption organizations. And the problem that the U.S. had with Ukraine at that time was that the investigator that they had put in charge to investigate these corruption claims was not, in the U.S. and in most of the world's opinion, not operating fast enough. Like this investigator was not doing everything that they could be doing. They were slow walking these cases. And so the idea was that the U.S. was going to withhold aid until such a time as somebody was put into place to stop slow walking the cases. Okay. Now, we can have a conversation about how it is not the U.S.'s place to be telling other countries how they should and should not be investigating their own internal affairs. That is a conversation that can be had, but that's not the conversation that we are having. And it's so weird because this trip that was, up until Trump decided to mischaracterize it into something it's not, was widely understood to be what it was. And actually, if you think about it, it's kind of one of those things where at the time, everybody critiqued it as it being a good message, but a poor messenger, because Hunter Biden was on the Burisma board and his father was there. But his father was there in a capacity that, if he was successful, would have really screwed Hunter over. Honestly, it would have been, it's kind of a dick move for Biden to do it in the first place. And he probably should have recused himself from doing it because, like I said, if they were successful, which there's been much debate about that too, because the prosecutor at the time was indeed fired. And there has been kind of a twisting of words by saying that Biden was bragging about getting this guy fired. I've heard the quote. I don't view it as bragging. I view it as him telling the story that we threatened to withhold aid to Ukraine unless this guy got fired, and he got fired. It's not really saying that Biden got him fired. Really, the U.S. got him fired. The Obama administration got him fired. So this whole situation that, like I said, was widely understood to be about Biden going to Ukraine, not unilaterally, but at the behest of the Obama administration, to strong-arm Ukraine into speeding up their anti-corruption investigations. Okay. Somehow or another, this has become Biden got. It's so bizarre for me to even try to explain this because it's so divorced from reality that I don't even know how to explain it. But now it's being presented as Biden went over there and got a prosecutor fired to protect his son, which is absolutely not what happened at all. And if the idea was to protect Hunter Biden and Burisma, that trip would have never have happened because everybody would have kept their mouth shut because the prosecutor was slow walking the case. Like the case against Burisma was shelved for a couple of years before Biden even went over there. So it's like, what the hell, man? Like how? Like there's so much of what's happened over the past couple of days that I'm just like, how are you saying this in public? This thing that is manifestly not true, and everybody knows it's not true, but you're just gonna lie about it in public. Like it's kind of mind melting to have watched how things have played out. So there's that trip, and allegedly, the way that Trump and Giuliani, because really basically it's them at this point, are trying to spin Trump's contact with Ukraine was to say that they were trying to continue that anti-corruption sort of strong-arm pressure on Ukraine, which, like I said in the last impeachment episode, if you believe that, I have got some primo beachfront property in Kansas to sell you. This has nothing to do with anything outside of Trump wanting to pursue, well, during the Ukraine call, still being stuck on the goddamn DNC server and also wanting to screw with Joe Biden. Like, that's what this is. And at this point, I don't really know how anybody can deny it, but we'll try to keep this going in chronological order here, people, because like I said, there's a lot going on. So there's that situation where the truth is becoming very twisty and hard to understand. And especially for people, like I said, if you're not following this like intently, there's so much misinformation and disinformation and point blank lying going on right now that it's really hard to follow if you're not like really paying attention. So moving on from Joe Biden's Ukraine trip that wasn't anything like what it is being portrayed to be today, to the whistleblower complaint change that really wasn't. Now, this all started with the Federalist running a piece saying that the official whistleblower complaint form that one fills out when they do an official whistleblower complaint was changed right before this whistleblower gave their complaint, to make it to where you didn't have to have like first party information. You could have second party information. So the Federalist releases this piece. Several people online debunk it, showing that, first off, there has never, ever been a stipulation in place that a whistleblower has to have firsthand information in order to file a whistleblower complaint. It seems like the change that was made in this form is all of a sudden there's now a box that you can check to say that you don't have firsthand information, but it was never a requirement in the first place. And then the Office of the Inspector General for the Intelligence Community, the office that actually handles these whistleblower complaints, got on Twitter, made a whole tweet thread about how the Federalist piece is incorrect. They actually changed this form back in May of 2018. And again, this is one of those where a lie makes it halfway around the world before the truth even gets its shoes on. And there are still, despite this being debunked, like even Trump retweeted the damn Federalist piece. Again, like this is so mind melting, and it's going to be so, oh my God, covering this is going to break people. And I hope one of those people isn't me. But oh my God, this is just like, what the fuck? So anyway, that was debunked, although it doesn't matter because you still have people clinging to the idea that somehow the Inspector General's office changed this form so that this particular whistleblower can do this particular whistleblower complaint. There is a strain of thought going around right now. And I think a lot of people who are already naturally susceptible to distrusting state influence and the quote unquote deep state are kind of buying into stories like this because it confirms your preferred narrative about the state. And I am no fan of the state. Don't get me wrong. The CIA, the FBI, all government agencies do shady shit all the fucking time. I'm not going to say they don't. But when you already have that mindset and these sorts of stories come out, even when they're debunked, like there's still people who want to believe it because they want to believe that there is a deep state coup going on right now, which, I mean, I guess one can make the argument that every impeachment process is a deep state coup, but it's just, it's confirmation bias in a way that I don't particularly like or am comfortable with, because especially in situations like this, in all situations I try to do this, but especially when you have a situation like we're currently in with this impeachment scandal, I really try to look at the facts as much as humanly possible and leave my sorts of emotions and opinions out of it so that I can try to, the best of my knowledge, to accurately represent the facts to you guys so that you can kind of make your own conclusions or at least have an idea of what the hell is actually going on. So anyway, that is the whistleblower complaint change that wasn't. Anyway, moving on. It also came out this week that the House has subpoenaed Rudy Giuliani to testify before the House. He is fighting this tooth and nail. Obviously, we shall see what comes of that, but Rudy Giuliani has officially been subpoenaed. And there's also, there's kind of two stories going on right now. there is this whole Biden story, non-story thing. I don't even know what to say about it anymore. But there's also this kind of secondary thing going on where you have Attorney General Barr seems to be investigating at the behest of Trump, which there is a problem right there, to discredit the whole Russiagate narrative, and by saying that, and again, this is mind melting, but it seems to be that the theory coming out of the Trump administration right now was that the whole Russia story was something of kind of like a plant by the DNC to discredit Trump in the case that he did actually win the election. So now you've got Barr flying to Italy to talk to God knows who about God knows what, to try to get information to help discredit the whole Russiagate narrative. It's confusing. It's so weird and confusing. But why the hell is the Attorney General flying all over the world to try to investigate this thing that has already been put to bed? I don't know, guys. This is so crazy. But the story that's really kind of flaring up right now is the story about Schiff and the whistleblower. Now, let me try to explain what the story actually is versus how it is being presented. For those of you who don't know who Adam Schiff is, he is a Democrat, and he is the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee. Adam Schiff is nobody's idea of a great and wonderful person, but the fact that he is the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee factors into this, because here's what happened. And this was reported in the New York Times as Adam Schiff having contact with the whistleblower. That's not exactly what happened. Here's what happened per the New York Times article. The whistleblower had originally, and for what it's worth, the whistleblower has been somewhat outed as a CIA agent. So there's another part that people are latching onto as far as this being a deep state coup kind of thing, which I did a Twitter thread, and maybe I'll discuss this a little later on in the episode about whistleblowers and motivation and where they come from and what they do for their day jobs. Anyway, so the whistleblower originally sent their complaints into the CIA to try to kick it up the ladder, and I guess there wasn't a lot of activity going on the CIA's end as far as investigating this. So the whistleblower went to Adam Schiff's office and spoke to one of his congressional aides and told the aide kind of vaguely, like didn't really lay out the whole story, but told the aide that they had information pertaining to a phone call. I'm not entirely sure what the whistleblower told the congressional aide, but the aide listened. It was like, okay, here's what you need to do. You need to go hire a lawyer, and then you need to go speak to the Inspector General's office and file an official whistleblower complaint, which, as it seems to have turned out, is exactly what the whistleblower did. They do have legal representation, and they did go file a formal whistleblower complaint. So that's that. And the congressional aide obviously told Schiff, because, I mean, you kind of can't not tell your boss that this person came in claiming to have this information, and then you told them to go through the official channels. That's it. That's the whole damn story, people. But it's being spun into this narrative again as if Adam Schiff met with the whistleblower himself, which Adam has said that he does not know the identity of the whistleblower. I mean, I'll take him at his word on that, but there is no evidence that Schiff ever directly spoke to the whistleblower. but it's being spun as if somehow Adam Schiff and this whistleblower like huddled together in a little dark room and like worked out this whistleblower complaint between the two of them. And that's not what happened at all. What happened was exactly what should have happened in that situation, which to Schiff's credit, and he did go out and say that his office had no contact with the whistleblower, which is technically not true. He personally has not had contact with the whistleblower, which is true. But you can't control who comes into your office and gives you information. Schiff didn't go seek this person out. Like, this person came to his office and told this aide his or her story of woe. And the aide did exactly what he or she was supposed to do, which is give advice to say, listen, here is not where you need to be. You need to be over in this office filling out this paperwork. And by the way, get a lawyer on your way over there. That's exactly what should have happened. So, outside of Schiff, I mean, and I won't say dumbassedly, because if I were in his position, I don't know as if I would have made it particularly known that the whistleblower had visited my office either, just because of the way it looks and the way people are spinning it, which obviously here we are. But yeah, it's one of these things that where it's a pretty benign story that's being trumped up into this huge thing that it wasn't, because certain people want a certain narrative to be out there. Facts be damned. And it's just like, this is not what happened. What happened was way more basic than what people are portraying it to be. But of course, it's people, you put this narrative out there, people want to believe it, people hear it, low information people that aren't following this, people who don't read the source material, which everybody, all the time, but especially now, read the source material. I will keep telling you guys this until everybody gets the message to read the source material. So, yeah. I mean, it's so... And there's going to be more of this. I know. But, oh my God, I'm already tired. I am already exhausted. And we've not even really started the impeachment process yet. And there's already so much bullshit to cut through. It's like, oh my God. And then we still have 2020 to get through. But anyway, that's that story. That's the truth of that story. So whenever you see this idea that somehow Schiff influenced the whistleblower or that he had something to do with the complaint, no. Barring any future evidence coming out, that's not what happened at all. And what actually did happen, it follows protocol. Like, the aide did exactly what he or she was supposed to do. And then the whistleblower did exactly what he or she was supposed to do. And that's about it. Moving on from that to Trump again. So, if you remember, or if you've been following this, Trump's initial line of defense about the call was that there was no quid pro quo and that he was not pressuring Ukraine to open up an investigation into the Bidens. Okay. Remember, that was the first defense. We've moved on past that one. But yesterday, on the White House lawn, in front of a full press pool, this idiot hauls off and point blank says that not only should Ukraine open up an investigation into the Bidens, but that China should too. Like, point blank said it in unequivocal language. There is no way to spin this away. The man said it. He said Ukraine should open an investigation into the Bidens, and so should China. What the actual fuck? I would hate to be this dude's lawyer. Like, I don't know, like, I guess Rudy is still his lawyer, but like, what have you had to have done in a past life to get stuck with this job and this client who constantly shoots himself in the foot in public? It's just like everybody who tried to defend Trump by saying, well, he wasn't specifically saying that Ukraine should look into the Bidens. Oh, well, sorry, there goes your defense. And there was a lesson in there about defending Trump, because whatever excuse or defense you can come up with to justify Trump's behavior, trust and believe within 24 hours of that argument exiting your mouth or fingers, Trump will shoot it down horribly by opening his mouth or his fingers and completely obliterating any defense you possibly could have had of him. So, yeah, it was pretty obvious to anybody who read the call notes what that call was about, but then he just said it, just point blank said it in front of a whole press pool that yes, he wants foreign governments to investigate a political rival. Who does that? Like, it makes your brain hurt a little bit to try to follow this. And he just keeps digging himself into this deeper hole. Like, I don't know. It's so bizarre. But now, to move on from that, because we're not done. We're not done with the bad news. Last night, transcripts came out from a testimony that a man named Kurt Volker gave to Congress, to the House on Wednesday. Yeah, I do believe it was Wednesday. Anyway, what he was until very recently special envoy to Ukraine. He was just pushed out by Pompeo, and now he just went and gave 9.5 hours of testimony to the House. It was behind closed doors. It wasn't public, but bits and pieces of it have been made public. And the biggest scandal that has come out of that testimony are these text messages between Bill Taylor, Gordon Sondland. Now, Bill Taylor was the top U.S. diplomat to Ukraine. Sondland is an ambassador to the EU. For what it's worth, and just as a side note, and just to show that we did not drain the swamp, Sondland was actually a 8-figure donor to Trump. So, yeah. Anyway, so these text messages came out where it seemed to be fairly clear to Taylor that the plan with withholding military aid to Ukraine was conditional on Ukraine opening up, or at least publicly saying that they would open up an investigation into the Bidens. So, these text messages exist between Taylor and Sondland, and Taylor point blank said that it's crazy to condition U.S. military aid on Ukraine doing a political investigation. Sondland was like, no, that's not what we're doing. The president wants to be very crystal clear that this isn't a quid pro quo, and we should stop talking about this back and forth via text. Which everybody knows what that means. Like, you know, when you tell somebody, hey, we should stop talking about this over text. You should call me. You know what's up. You know what you're doing. You know what you're saying. What you're saying is, stop writing this down in a format that could be found by other people and call me where we can talk about this verbally, where there won't be a record of what was said. So, these text messages come out, which again just adds to the whole idea that yes, this was quid pro quo, even as understood by the top diplomat to Ukraine. As he understood it, that's what this was. And apparently, there's more about this coming out, because this story kind of broke last night. And apparently, there's a whole backstory with Sondland and Giuliani and some other people leaning on Ukraine to try to either find dirt, which, for what it's worth, Ukraine already did the investigation on Burisma, already did the investigation on the Bidens, found no wrongdoing, whatever. But they're leaning on them to either find dirt or manufacture dirt on the Bidens. It's very shady. It's all shady shit. So, that comes out. That becomes a huge deal. And at this point, there's just so much pointing to the idea that, yes, Trump was withholding military aid to Ukraine in exchange for them producing the stupid DNC server and for trying to get dirt on Biden. And to that note, in that effect, Ukraine was not the only the only country that Trump reached out to. He also reached out to Australia and the United Kingdom. He called Boris Johnson, who is now the Prime Minister of the UK. I believe that's the right term. And he also called the President of Australia, asking them to look into the Bidens and to look into corruption. And it's like, dude, who did you not call? Oh my God, how can one person be so bad at this? I really question, how the hell did somebody become a billionaire in the 70s and 80s in real estate in New York City while being this shitty at doing shady deals? Like, how the hell did this happen? But it's a hot mess. Everything is a fucking hot mess. And at this point, I don't really know how you ignore all of the evidence that exists. And Trump keeps going out here and saying that the whistleblower complaint has been discredited. I've not seen a single blessed thing that discredits what was in that whistleblower's account. In fact, everything that has come out since then corroborates it. Like, the phone notes corroborate it. Nobody's denying that the phone call happened. Nobody's denying that what was said on the phone call was what was said. The only thing that's being spun is how you should be looking at it, which, I mean, with everything that's happened over the past week, and especially with Trump point blank calling for Ukraine and China to look into the Bidens, like, I don't know how you interpret this in any other way other than the President of the United States asking foreign countries to look into a political rival. Like, he's not saying you guys should look into corruption. He's not saying you should look into shady business practices. He point blank said you should look into the Bidens. It's just, I don't know what else to say to that other than at some point you have to acknowledge that he is doing exactly what everybody was kind of accusing him of doing. And so now, what do you do about it? And for what it's worth, I still have the same feelings on impeachment that I had before. I mean, philosophically speaking, if you want to go down that road, I guess fine, do it, whatever. Practically speaking, I still don't think it's going to be successful, although with everything that's happened over the past week, it becomes really, really hard for Republicans to justify that no vote. I'm not saying that they won't do it, and I'm not saying that they won't find a justification for it, but it's getting really hard for them to be able to justify it under plausible deniability. But they still will. I mean, barring something insane happening, even more insane than everything that has happened, they will twist themselves into pretzels to vote no, despite all of the facts that are in front of us right now. So anyway, that pretty much covers the impeachment news as well as I can cover it. So I want to move on from that to a lot of discussion that I've seen about the whistleblower and what we as people, as citizens, should and should not know about this person. Now, like I said earlier, the whistleblower has been quasi-outed. We don't know their name or anything like that, but it has been, I guess, confirmed. I mean, it's been reported that this person is CIA. So there are people who have come out and said that, and people also including Trump, because obviously, that we have a right to know who the whistleblower is because Trump has a right to face his accuser. Okay. Let's take a moment and explain what a whistleblower is and how whistleblowing works. A whistleblower is not an accuser. What a whistleblower is doing is alerting somebody, whoever that somebody may be, that there is a problem that should be looked into. And for what it's worth, and this is just me extrapolating from facts that are in evidence, what I think this whistleblower is somebody who is high level enough to know about things that are going on, or at least be privy to conversations that are going on, but not high level enough to be able to say, to get into the server where the phone transcripts of the Ukraine call are, because it is in a code word sensitive server. So in that situation, what you would do is you would tell somebody who either has the access to the server or can force access to the server, which is what it seems like this whistleblower did. They tried to kick it up through the CIA. Nothing was really going on there. So went to the House Intelligence Committee. House Intelligence Committee said, go to the Inspector General and file a whistleblower complaint, which is what this person has apparently done. So I think where a lot of people are getting kind of confused is we've gotten very used to whistleblowers. We've gotten very used to the Edward Snowdens of the world and the Chelsea Mannings and the reality winners who do show up with receipts. They do show up with that firsthand knowledge. They do show up with the documents, the transcripts, the phone calls, the recordings, the whatever it is that they have to prove their case. Not every whistleblower can do that. This whistleblower does not seem to have the access to do that. So what the idea is that the whistleblower isn't the person who's going to be the accuser. Like in this particular situation, when and if impeachment proceedings get off the ground, the accuser will be the House of Representatives. And Trump will have plenty of time to question them, obviously, if he so chooses, if he wishes to go testify, however that ends up working out. But we do have, in this country, there are federal protections that protect the anonymity of whistleblowers, specifically because of the threats posed to whistleblowers. Like, Trump has already point blank said that he wants to know the identity of the whistleblower so that he could try them for treason. Like, there's a reason that we have laws that protect the identity of whistleblowers so that they don't have to face this undue pressure for whistleblowing. So, no, we don't have the right to know who this person is. I'm really hoping that this person's identity does not get made public against their will. If they do decide they want to go public, fine, whatever. Last I heard, the whistleblower does want to testify to the House. Whether that will happen publicly or privately, we don't know yet. Last I saw from their lawyer is that they're still in negotiations with the House to figure out exactly how that's going to go down. But it's not like this person just dropped this report and is just like wiping their hands and walking away. Like, they do want to testify. But it's this idea that the whistleblower is the accuser and that we have the right to know who the accuser is that's just not factually correct. Like, that's not how this works. And so I really wish people would stop pushing that narrative. Like, we let people stay anonymous for a reason. And when the president of the United States is threatening to try somebody for treason, yeah, it's a good reason to stay anonymous. And so, like I said, I hope this person gets to keep their anonymity for as long as they want it. If that includes being the rest of their life, then I hope they get that. But I want to move on from that to kind of branching off from that, and that's how the impeachment process works. Now, a lot of people, especially if you're making the argument that the accused has the right to face their accuser, you're looking at this as if this was a criminal court challenge. And I've said that my personal standard, and I said this when I was talking about Russiagate and the Mueller report, I hold this to kind of that standard, not because you have to, but because I feel like if you're going to go down the impeachment road, you really need to have like rock solid evidence that would pass muster in a criminal court. So that's why I kind of didn't support impeachment after the Mueller report, because I didn't feel like there was enough there. We're getting to the point here with this that there's enough there to run this, but it's not a criminal process. It's a political process. It's not part of the criminal courts. It's not part of the civil courts. It's a purely political process. And honestly, you can impeach a president for any damn thing. You can start impeachment proceedings because he picked a wedgie in public. Like, it doesn't matter. You can do it for anything. Like, clearly you should have a good reason for doing it, but there's no standard of, outside of high crimes and misdemeanors, like, okay, well, you can pretty much shoehorn anything into that description. But yeah, I think a lot of people are misconstruing what the process is and what it isn't. And like I said, I think the vote is either today or tomorrow in the House of whether they will open up formal impeachment proceedings. So we shall see what happens there. But yeah, it's a political process. And if you wanted to liken it to criminal court, you would say that Trump would be the plaintiff and the House would be the defendant. No, the other way around. I'm sorry. It's all very confusing. But basically what you're looking at is the House bringing charge, accusing the president of doing a thing. And then they kind of act as both accuser and quasi-jury, because the ultimate jury is the Senate. So you have your impeachment proceedings in the House. House votes. If it passes, it gets kicked up to the Senate, and the Senate is the body that ultimately decides whether or not impeachment is a yes or a no. And then impeachment is also not removal. So then you have that whole situation to deal with. So it's a long process. It's going to be a drawn out process. It's not going to be fast. Like, I don't know what Nancy Pelosi was thinking with that. But yeah, I think a lot of people are trying to make it into something that it's really not. But one last point I want to make before I wrap this up, because this is an underrated point that I've only seen a few people make. And Ella Solman actually made it over on Reason, writing for Volkov Conspiracy. There is a constitutional problem here in that Trump decided to unilaterally hold up money that Congress had allotted to Ukraine. That's not constitutional. Constitutionally speaking, only Congress gets to decide where money is allocated to, and the president does not and should not have the right to unilaterally change that. Which, I know, but I think that would be a very good point for the House to add to impeachment proceedings, that the president did actually create a constitutional violation when he did that. And that would be a good point to make, and one that you really can't argue that he didn't do, because he did. And from everything that I've read, it was unilateral. It wasn't, he didn't consult with the Pentagon. He didn't consult with Congress. He didn't consult with anybody. He just decided, I'm going to do this. So that is something that I think deserves to be a little more unpacked and discussed. So yeah, hopefully, maybe. I mean, everybody, there's, like I said, there's just so much going on. There's so many things that you could possibly attack this man on right now, but I feel like that's an underrated one. So at this point, I think I've gone on long enough, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. If you did make it this far, thank you as always. And if you do like this, please rate, comment, and subscribe. You can find me on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Spotify, YouTube, and Libertarian Institute, and also now my Patreon page. So, as always, take care, and until next time.